Turn up a little.
Skip Rosenthal, Turning Point.
Big Roberts, Missoula, Rico. Small house from downtown Missoula. Can do this. Low income slumlord.
Ah. Is that why you're sitting over there, Ken? This will be interesting. You'll only hear my voice, and there's a little laugh in the background. People will wonder what that means. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to spend some time talking about the needs for different projects in Missoula, both in the immediate one-year time frame and then in the next 5 years. The Consolidated Plan is a 5-year document. The current one runs from 2004 to 2008, and so we're now in the cycle where we write a new one for 2009 to 2013. So what we are going to include in that, and this will be the first of at least 2 meetings that we're going to have with the public to gather needs for. But the other part of this is our annual Community Needs Assessment Plan, which is where those of you who have specific programs, for example, that are going to be applying for either Community Development Block Grant or home funds for this upcoming year, this is their first opportunity for you to get them out on the table so that people know that those are coming down the pike. There will be an application workshop on next Tuesday for those of you who are interested in applying for either CDBG or home, and we hope you come to that as well. So what we'll do is we'll go through a quick PowerPoint presentation, because what is a presentation here without a PowerPoint? And then break up into small groups, and we'll probably do about 4 groups. Each of you will then, within your groups, you'll be led by a facilitator from one of the staff at OPG, and then within that you will look at some of the priorities that you see as our most pressing needs for Missoula. And we have one more gentleman who's joined us. If you'd like to introduce yourself, sir.
I'm John. I work for the city.
Thank you. And then we'll all come back together and look at that and see if there's kind of overlap in any of your groups in terms of projects that you really feel are most important for the city and the county. Remember, this is a city and county meeting. We're going to take comment on any kinds of interests you have within either the city or the county. So feel free to keep a broad spectrum in mind on this. And then we'll come back and discuss it and see if we come up with some next steps to go for the next meeting, which will probably be in November. So what does Missoula expect in next year? I mean, you're going to see some slides that I'm going to show you a little bit about some of the demographic changes, some of how our population has changed both in terms of age and the number of workers, family sizes and composition, how development is patterned, where growth is, where different infrastructure is, and you'll see that. And I'm going to show you this in the 4 basic categories that you're going to be considering tonight. And the 4 categories are housing, economic development, public facilities and infrastructure, which is one thing, which is like sewers and things, and public services, which is also human services. So under housing, the kinds of things you might be looking at include acquisition, infrastructure, which would be like a sidewalk in front of a house. I'm going to have to move away for this for a second. Rehabilitation, which would be repair of existing housing and new construction. I gratefully lifted some information from the Urban Fringe Development Area Project, otherwise known as UFTA, who's produced some really amazing statistics. And one of the things we found is that based on the growth projected for Missoula, you can see where it's gone from back up in the 2001 to now. There's projection of almost 15,000 new housing units will likely be needed in the next 20 years. And that's based on, Mike, correct me, here's Mike here, about a 2% growth rate.
Yeah, it's a high number. You could get that.
Okay.
And if it's not in 20 years, it'll be in 30. It's in that time frame.
One of the things that we often look at is the existing housing stock, and this kind of gives you an example of both owner-occupied, and I'll show you the renter one in a minute. This is the age of housing in Missoula. I think one of the important things here is looking at these numbers right here. Those are houses that were built before 1979. And for those of you who are doing any housing, you know that's pretty much about the date when the lead-based paint standards came into effect. That means that those many houses, 62% of the homeowners' houses in the county and 73 in the city are older and may well have lead-based paint in them. So if you're going to rehab them, that's a big issue for when you're going to do that. Here's rental. Pretty much the same at 73% for rental housing. And you all could have picked up a copy. If you didn't, they're out on the thing of this presentation in case you need any of this. Another little tidbit that I picked up in gathering some data for this is the number of housing contracts that are expiring in the next 5 years. These are all the ones that are currently assisted housing. This would be your Section 8, your 202s, all those different ones that are assisted housing programs. Lori and people at the Public Housing Authority can tell us, in detail how many of those are, but it's a huge stock of housing in Missoula. And of that, between 25 and 30% of the ones in Missoula are going to expire within the next 5 years. Oh, hey, I get to be Dr. Phil. So that's a real problem when you think about, it's housing for the people who are generally the lowest income and are most in need of assisted housing. If we're looking at 25 to 30% of the stock potentially going away. The households have changed. You can see we've had a change since the 60s to what's projected for 2005. The number of single households have gone from 13% to 28%. The number with children have dropped from 48 to 28%. And that means some changes in what houses look like, obviously, is one of the possibilities of that. The other thing is that the type of housing is expected to change as well. There'll be less demand for the typical large ranch on a quarter-acre lot kind of thing, and more for smaller lots. So they're actually projecting there'll be 22 million fewer nationwide of a need for the typical large lot kind of developments. So then in public services, I know a lot of you are interested in that because that's what we also call human services. It's a lot of the, it's not the hard stuff that you build the house, but it's what keeps the people in the house and keep them healthy. Employment services, job training, child care, health services, down payment assistance sometimes falls under this category as opposed to housing. Energy conservation, welfare, and recreation are some of the examples of that. The homeless population is, been a matter of great discussion in this community. And this is a slide that shows how the homeless population numbers in Missoula compare to other areas in the state. This is split out by the Human Resource Development Council districts. And as you can see, this one right here, that's Missoula. That's the number of that's the homeless percent of the population compared to this is the state number. That's Butte, Kalispell, Bozeman, Helena, Billings, Great Falls, Havre, if I'm hitting these right, and Wolf Point and Miles City down there. And then the red is the number of homeless with family. The yellowish color is without family, and the lightest color is the one that are accompanying. They're usually youth that are accompanying the family member that's homeless. So obviously, there is a disparity between the number of homeless in the Missoula area versus in other areas. And this district includes Missoula, Ravalli, and Mineral County. Thank you. I knew Jim could answer that for me. Oops. Aging population. Montana's got one of the higher rates of aging, and that brings special considerations in terms of accessibility and whether people are going to be staying in their homes or going in other kind of assisted facilities. Florida's not the big surprise there, but actually to see Montana fairly high there is kind of interesting. This is the now famous silver tsunami, it's called. It's all of us baby boomers. Here's us. We go, root. These are all the people who are going to be 65 plus years old. So somewhere around, that's today, and you'll see that we get up to here where in less than 20 years, there'll be more people who are over age 65 than any other age group. And that raises lots of questions about whether, who's helping to support those people, which is like me. This is just a quick map to show you where some of the low and moderate areas are in Missoula. The darker colors there are higher percentages. The darkest one is 75 or more percent of the people in that area are considered low and moderate income. That's by HUD's standards. That's below 80% of median income. So the darker the color there, the higher the percentage. Here's some statistics just showing poverty. This is nationwide, and you can see Montana. The top chart here is the median income, and you can see the lightest color, which is like Montana and New Mexico, is less than $40,000 as a median income. The darker states are more than $55,000. And then on the bottom we have some information about poverty rates. And you can see that's kind of been up and down, but certainly not going down, unfortunately. So public facilities is another important activity. Most people probably think of that in terms of the infrastructure like sewer, because we do projects like the East Missoula Sewer or the Reserve Street Sewer. It can include special needs populations, shelters and group homes, that kind of thing. We've done that with Western Montana Mental Health Center in helping build the Carroll STEM apartments and the Stevens House as an example. Water and sewer tends to be a real big thing here, and you'll notice this is the current, right, Mike? Yes, current water and sewer lines in Missoula. And as you can see, the areas on the outside don't have sewer there. So it's one of those things that when you're looking at housing, you have to think about, and Gypsy knows about this. If you're going to build anything, what do you have in terms of other facilities, the infrastructure that you're going to need to build it? So keep that in the back of your mind for your conversations when you have those. Oops. Economic development. We would really like to see more activity in the economic development area. We've had a couple initiatives so far, but we'd like to see a little more. It can be used for various, small business assistance or for job creation, and that specifically means to create jobs. Some of the information about training for Montana jobs shows that 81% of the Montana jobs require 2 years of training or less, and 18% require a bachelor's degree. So there may be some needs that people might be thinking about in terms of on-the-job training. And you can see here's the 65% of the jobs in Montana require only on-the-job training in order to have a job. And this was just off of the CNN website. Missoula was picked as one of the top 100 best places to live and launch a small business. So thought I'd just highlight that a little bit. Pros: natural beauty, a good college town. We know that. Con: long winters. They seem to be getting shorter, I think. So our objectives is the development of a viable urban or suburban or rural community. This is kind of a slide lifted from our focus on city, but remember we are looking at both the city and the county here. The major objectives are to develop decent housing, develop a suitable living environment, and to expand economic opportunities. Our specific objectives for the HUD programs are these. They're much more focused towards low and moderate income. The people that we serve with our CDBG and home programs are designed to serve and required to serve low and moderate income people primarily. So that's, for example, a household of 4, it's $44,300 or less to be considered a lower moderate income person. So what we'll have now is we'll do our community needs discussion, and you'll be handed out a form like this after we break into groups. They're split into the 4 categories that we just talked about: the housing, public facilities and infrastructure, economic development, and public service. And within that, there are 3 columns: needs. First thing is, what is the need? Is there a need for more child care, more daycare? Is there a need for more job training? Is there a need for housing for a particular interest group or a special needs population? The second is the potential projects. Those of you who have projects in line, ready to go, this is your time to be listing them out on this kind of a list to let us know what those are. But there are also ones that you can, at this point, say what we really need is. Put it in there. And then try to put a time frame on it. Like, I think we should be able to accomplish this in 3 years or 5 years, or if it's going to be longer. And then finally, possible resources. If you know of resources that are available that you can bring to the table, both in terms of home and CDBG, which are available to you, but also United Way and every single foundation that we all know and love. And sometimes that helps just in terms of information sharing, so that when we get that out, you can say, oh, I hadn't even thought of that as a potential source. So if you can get it out here today, that will help us do that. And then that's just our basic information of who we are and where we are. So the mayor looks poised to speak.
Thank you very much. Just a couple things real quickly, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been outside recently, you'll understand why I laughed at the joke about the long winters. And the fact that you are here this evening is testament to your commitment to the folks who need the services that you're interested in providing. It's a beautiful Missoula evening, so thank you very much for being here. I want to suggest to you that there are unsung heroes in the room this evening, including Cindy Wolfkuhl and Nancy Hart, who year after year figure out ways to help your programs work. And again, thank you for being here to participate in this. The reason we're here is to identify these needs, and as our dollars continue to shrink, I can tell you that the funds that we're talking about tonight are the best spent federal dollars in the United States of America. The work that you're doing here, the process that we go through is complex, I recognize, but also very fair, and in the end, I think produces remarkable results, and those results are the product of your work. So thank you for all of that as well. And I won't belabor any of this. I'll let you get to your discussion, but I did want to come by and thank you for what you do and your interest in your community, which is relentless in many cases, and to also suggest to you that our staff, as you know, is as invaluable to me as they are to you. So with that, discuss away and work your magic. Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's all break up into, what are we looking at, 4 groups, maybe 5 groups? 4? 4 groups. Okay, four groups would be about right then. Okay, so what we ask you to do is every single group is going to be talking about the same thing. So there's not going to be like a housing group and an economic development group and a public facility. So all of you will have an opportunity to address each one of those topics. And what I would ask is that if you have multiple people from your one organization, split them up among the groups, because we need to get each of your voices in each of the different groups. So what we'll basically do is we'll have one group gather over here, 1 or 2 groups right here, and then one over here. We'll have, if our facilitators would stand up, grab a corner, and move chairs if you like to, or turn it and turn around, however what makes you comfortable, so that we can do this. And we'll have the papers to hand out to you here in just a sec.